Hey, sorry I'm not here in person, but this is the best we can do, so let's go for it. Please pause this if you don't have the answers for the do now already done. Circle, top left corner, radius is 2. Right, from the center of the circle to the circle itself, that's 2 units. Diameter, this is when I have to go all the way across the circle at its widest point, cutting through the center. And it looks like 8. Diameter is 4. Into the circle on the upper right. And again, for the radius, I can draw it up instead of to the right and say, hey, looks like it's 4 units vertical. Diameter, looks like that circle is 8 units wide, so diameter is 8. Lower left circle, looks like a radius of 3, a diameter of 6. Right, this part of the do not should have gone really quick for you. Radius of 1, diameter of 2. Some extra practice on the missing sides of a right triangle. Right, we've been down this path a few times. Now in this first triangle, because I'm actually looking for one of the shorter sides, I actually need to subtract, right? So instead of adding the 25 and the 169, we end up subtracting. Don't forget, last step, got to take the square root. Right, but you should be all stars at this by this point in time, right? We've been doing this unit for quite some time. We've been working with squares and square roots for quite some time. So the missing side there is 12. And then, if you've not already memorized the answer, right, it's like we've seen this triangle quite a few times. Guaranteed, if you ever take the SAT test or the PSAT test, you'll find a triangle on that test that has measurements of 3, 4, and 5. Right? All right, now, new instruction. If you flip your paper over, right, we're going to do a few of these together here. Circumference of a circle. Now, usually with a polygon, we talk about the perimeter. It's like the perimeter of a square, or the perimeter of a rectangle, or the perimeter of a triangle. But when we go around the outside of a circle, instead of calling it the perimeter, we call it the circumference. Right? There are no straight edges to add up. So we call this the circumference. And the circumference of a circle, when I take its ratio to the diameter, has a value of pi. Right? So any circle, no matter how big or how small, if I take the circumference, which is the measurement all the way around, think perimeter, divide it by the diameter, it comes up with a value of pi. Right? So the number pi is the ratio of the circumference to the diameter. Now this also means that the circumference is pi times the diameter. And then, as you learned yesterday, the diameter is 2 times the radius. So if I want to figure out the circumference, if I know the diameter, I just multiply by pi. If I know the radius, I have to multiply by 2, and I have to multiply by pi. Notice the way mathematicians write the equation. The 2 is first, and then the pi, and then the r. Mathematicians always put the variable last, right? The diameter, d, is a variable. The radius r is a variable. Those will always come last. And then we also want the numbers as coefficients. So pi is a coefficient, so pi times diameter. And then 2 times pi is the coefficient for the other one. Now, pi is an irrational number. It has a value of about 3.141592653589799, etc. It goes on forever. Right? Irrational numbers are decimals that do not stop and do not have a repeating pattern. So I want the exact value of the circumference of a circle. I'm going to use the pi symbol. If I want an approximate value, I will multiply by 3.14. We'll say, hey, you know what? Pi is pretty close to 3.14. So let's look at some examples. All right. First examples we do are going to be exact values. The next set of examples we do will be approximate values. All right. So let's get ready. Right on the back side of your do now, I'm going to provide either the diameter or the radius, and we want to calculate the circumference with an exact value. Number 1, if the diameter is 7, what would be the circumference of that circle? Well, I do diameter times pi. So 7 times pi. That is the exact length of the circumference. That's the answer. Number 2, the diameter is 4. Well, I got to do 4 times pi. Answer is 4 pi. Number 3, what if the radius is 3? Uh-oh. If it's the radius, I have to double it, right? Because the radius is only half the diameter. So 2 times 3 is 6. So the answer will be 6 pi. Right? Because the radius is only halfway across the circle. Number 4, if the radius is 1, well, 2 times 1 is 2. Then I got to multiply by pi. The answer is 2 pi. Number 5, if the diameter is 9, circumference 9 times pi will be 9 pi. Number 6, what if the radius is 4? Well, I got to do 4 times 2 is 8. Right? So the diameter is actually 8, so the circumference is 8 pi. So if we want the exact value, it's actually very quick. Now, where it slows down is if we want to use an approximate value, because then instead of just multiplying by the pi symbol, I'm going to actually multiply by 3.14. So number 7, if the diameter is 3, I'm not going to just write down 3 pi, right? I'm going to actually figure it out. I got to go, oh, I got to take pi, and I want to multiply it by the number 3. Right? So I want to take 3.14, which is an approximation of pi, multiply by 3. So let's see, 3 times 4 is 12. Let's put down the 2, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 more makes 4. 3 times 3 is 9. Now, there were 2 digits behind the decimal, so I need 2 digits behind the decimal. So the circumference, 9.42. Right, that's the approximate value of the circumference of a circle with a diameter of 3. Number 8, what if the diameter is 4? Well, if I wanted an exact value, I'd just write 4 pi. But if I want an approximate value, well, I got to take 3.14 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Put down the 6, carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 more make 5. 4 times 3 is 12. Don't forget about your decimal point. There were 2 digits behind the decimal. On the answer, I better have 2 digits behind the decimal. So if the diameter is 4, their circumference is 12.56. Ooh, number 9, we're going to be given the radius. Now, if I want the circumference, I really need to know the diameter. So I've got to take the radius and multiply it by 2, right? 1 times 2 is 2. And so now I can do pi times 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 digits behind the decimal. Poof, there we are, 6.28. What if the radius is 5? Well, I need the diameter. So 5 times 2 is 10. 3.14 times 10. Really don't need to do any work here, right? If I multiply by 10, I'm just going to move the decimal one spot. So it's going to be 31.4. All right, multiply by 10, you just move the decimal in one place. There we go. Now it's time for independent practice. It's time for worksheet number 2. But notice I'm going to actually work out the first 3 questions with you. So let's make sure that everyone gets a copy of the second worksheet for today. Pause the video if necessary. And again, at any point in time, if I'm just going too fast, you can also hit pause or stop. You can also rewind if you need to. But let's do the first 3 questions together. All right, and I thought it would be more helpful if you actually saw a picture of the circle instead of me just giving you numbers, right? So number 1, you go, oh, that's a circle with diameter of 7. Oh, question number 2, that's a circle with a radius of 4. Oh, question number 3, there's a circle with a diameter of 20, right? When it goes all the way across the circle, that's the diameter. When it goes from the center of the circle to the circle, that's the radius. And notice for each question, I want both the exact and the approximate value. Right? So for number 1, you say, hey, exact value piece of cake. The diameter is 7. The exact value is 7 pi. If I want a decimal approximation, I'll use 3.14 for pi and multiply that by 7. 7 times 4 is 28. Got to put down the 8, carry the 2. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 makes 9. 7 times 3 is 21. Now there were 2 digits behind the decimal, so I need 2 digits behind the decimal in my answer. And so the approximate value is 21.98. Question number 2. Now don't get in too big of a hurry, right? I'm looking at the radius and I go, oh, if the radius is 4, I have to double that and get 8. Right? 4 times 2 is 8. So the exact value is 8 pi. Approximate, I do 3.14 times 8. 4 times 8 is 32. Put down the 2. Carry the 3. 8 times 1 is 8. Plus 3 is 11. Put down the 1. Carry the 1. 8 times 3 is 24. Plus 1 is 25. In the product, I'm sorry, not the product. In the factors, one of the factors had 2 digits behind the decimal. So the product needs to have 2 digits behind the decimal. 25.12. Yay. Question 3, exact value. Well, the diameter is 20. Exact value, 20 pi. For the approximate value, got to multiply 3.14 by 20. Now, because we're multiplying by 20, we're going to get an extra 0 at the end. Right? 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. And then 2 times 4 is 8, but look where the 8 is, right? I've got to move it over because I'm in the tens column now. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. I got to add those together. Get 0, 8, 2, 6. One of the factors had 2 digits behind the decimal, so the product has to have 2 digits behind the decimal. Now, when we write the answer, I can actually write it as 62.8. I don't need the 0 behind the 8. All right? Have fun. You can work independently here. And hoping to be back tomorrow. Otherwise, you might be watching another video. I hope to be in person. Just kind of depends on how well I'm doing.